Eddie, folks, welcome back to the Mushing Alaska coverage of the 2026 Iditarod. Excited to have you on for the second night of our coverage. Quick Sean update. I haven't honestly been able to talk to him as much as maybe I would prefer to be. Um, but he started out in Finger Lake. He was in Nikolai, and currently he's in Cripple. I was when I was at work earlier today. Um, I just kind of had it on in the background, and I heard Greg and Bruce get on there, and they were kind of talking to Sean behind the camera, which was kind of cool. But with like my new job, I haven't been able to consume as much as I usually do from the insider, so I miss hearing Sean. But anyways, with further ado, we'll just move into this and bring on our guests. I'd like to welcome on Cody Strathe and Amanda Otto. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And I do also, you guys see the festive shirt. I do want to kind of tell a story behind that. So I was like looking for pictures before this, and I saw Cody at a concert wearing like a cool kind of shirt, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna kind of put on a shirt that reminds me of that. The funny thing behind this is Sean was just in South Africa, and so he got this shirt for me there, and I just was like, this feels right to wear tonight. So, anyways, thank you guys for being on. Let me pitch it to you, Amanda. What has kind of caught your eye here in this far into the race now that we're coming off the 24-hour mandatory rests? Nice, nice, awesome. Uh, Cody, obviously, right now as we speak, Paige is sitting really nice. She's got 11 miles between her and the next person behind her. Um, and before we went live, I was asking you, I'm like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you not talking to her the whole time or whatever? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you guys have been doing this for a while, but um, you know, A, can you talk about how it, like, your agreement or whatever you were telling me about this year, and then B, just kind of assess how you think she's doing coming off the 24? Nice. Very nice.
What was the second part? How I feel about her race? Was it her coming off 24?
Yeah. Assess
Yeah.
assess where she's at. We're coming in, and I will fully admit I unfortunately had part of this muted, so it just unmuted.
That's fine.
I'm my own worst enemy, but here we are.
Oh,
The
Fine.
chat the chat is keeping me on top of it, and I just pulled it up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's saying no sound. So
there you
night
go.
two, I
Okay.
still haven't learned from my night one lesson. We're gonna hit rewind a little bit. They at least heard my intro, but I don't think they heard you guys. So
Okay.
Funny.
so
You
now
start over
that
if you want.
yeah. Let's go back to Amanda
Okay.
and just kind of talk a little bit about what you originally said, so we can circle back up, and then we'll get back to Cody.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I was just kind of excited to see what everybody's doing now coming off their 24. I do think, given the temperatures that we're seeing, pretty brutally chilly out there, I think we're, as far as heading into the Yukon, I think we are, I think it is going to be less about having a powerful dog team versus a well managed dog team. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some people that have kind of been hanging out towards the back of the back 10, starting to make their way towards the front, given the Yukon. When you got those really nasty cold temperatures, keeping your team hydrated is huge. Managing the speed is always huge. You're going to pay for that in dividends when it's 40 below out. If you're doing these 10-mile-an-hour run, for 60 miles, it's you might not see that in the next 100 miles, but you're going to pay for that 3 and 4 runs later. And so I think we're going to see some change ups coming into the Yukon, and I'm excited to see how those kind of play out.
Nice, nice. Funny enough, Sean just texted me and said there are people saying that you guys are on mute in the Iditarod Insider. Hey,
Oh,
listen,
Sean.
Sean's made the same mistake on the in on the Insider too, and he's getting paid. I'm over here like hustling to make a home to do this. So, um,
It's fine. People don't want to hear what we have to say anyway.
no, no. So yeah, and then Cody, just kind of going back to you, I was, your page is sitting pretty right now. So I was just asking you to kind of assess that a little bit, and then we were kind of discussing how, you guys are kind of taking a hands-off approach with your communication. Less is more, it sounds like, and really just kind of letting her focus on what she can control and what you can't see, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no point in her asking for my opinion on things. I can't see the dogs. She definitely says what she thinks she might do, and then usually an hour later she changes her mind, does something different, anyways. And so I've got a few texts from her, but it's really cold out there. Normally, I think it's warmer, and she wants a little more company on the trail, and so then she texts a little more from the inReach. But right now it's really cold, and keep that thing in your pocket and focus on the dogs. Yeah, she came off her 24 out to Katna real strong. I did get a text about that the dogs were looking really good. She was really happy with the way they looked. She didn't want to do her 24 there. That was not the plan.
Okay.
But of course, she did send things there just in case, because you never know. But even when she stopped at Takatna, her plan was to just kind of do a 4 hour rest, swap sleds, do a couple things, and go. And then she learned a little more information about the trail while she was there and the temperatures, and decided with 40 below temps and possible wind, and the fact they just put the trail in that same day. Um, and she had some wet clothes, and all the things. It's easy to have a plan on paper, and then it's something completely different when you're out there and it's 40 to 50 below, or cold or windy or what have you, or you're all your clothes are wet and you're really uncomfortable and unhappy. Those are the types of things that change things quick. Or you have like a really important dog that has a little bit of soreness. Like, well, if I take my 24 now, maybe that'll go away. All those types of things play into those decisions. And so I think there were a handful of those things thrown into her decision making there, and she decided not to run out front and go to Cripple immediately. But her whole plan was based off of a 24 at Cripple, and so now um, it was interesting today to try to get some information out of her, like what are we doing now? Where are you going? What's happening next? And so I think I know what she's doing now, but that also changes as you go down the trail. So um, I know that she left Cripple in first position here a couple hours ago, and we'll travel down trail a couple hours and camp somewhere between there and Ruby, and then the rest we'll see.
Nice.
But she's doing
I
great.
won't. I
She's got
won't. I won't
got
probe you for what's the
yeah,
plan.
yeah. Yeah, she's got 14 dogs still. She's got that trailer. So I saw she went through Cripple. She was carrying one. She's been doing that often, kind of switching out different dogs that may have little tiny dings or whatever. She carried one dog for 2 runs, and now he's back in the team. And so that's one of the nice things about the trailer is you can kind of, somebody's got just a little thing, a little soreness, you can kind of massage them when you rest and let them ride. And as long as you got enough power and the trail's fine, it's not a big deal to have a dog or two back there. And so use that technique for many years. We don't typically rotate dogs like Dallas did on a schedule, but we just kind of look at who needs it the most and kind of use that in that way. And so see that she's been doing that a bit, and she did go through Cripple with one dog riding. So I don't know who it was, but we'll learn later.
Gotcha. Nice. So one thing I want to kind of circle back to, Amanda, you were talking about how the weather and the hydration and the dog care, and that has me kind of wondering, like, what are you doing to get them hydrated when the temperatures are what they are right now?
Yeah, I think everybody does it a little bit differently, but really important to good piece of gear to have in your sled on a race like this is an insulated water jug. Something that you can clear water your dogs with. We all kind of make soupy-ish meals for the dogs at some point. Any kind of hydration that you can get into them, but really paramount when it's well below zero to keep your guys hydrated. When it's naturally cold out, both for dogs or people, your body doesn't always signal you to drink, and so you need to be able to do that mechanically. Um, yeah, so I'm curious to see. Like Cody said, we can't see the dogs. We don't know what everybody's doing. All we're looking at is essentially a stat sheet and speeds. But I will say that, if you run the dogs the right speed on the right kind of trail and the right temperatures, they can almost go forever, so to speak, in the musher world. You run them the wrong speed on the wrong trail and the wrong temperature, all the rest in the world just does not make up for that. And did you stop to water your dogs? Did you stop to snack them at some point? Those key little moves when it's this cold really do make all the difference. So, yeah, I can't see where people are doing that, if they're doing that, how their dogs are, responding to that. But yeah, having a well hydrated team when it's 40 below out is huge. I think you're gonna have a stronger team because of that. And so yeah, being able to clear water your dogs any chance you get, and hopefully they drink it in this kind of weather is really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, sure. And so I guess it's safe to say, like, the weather has kind of slowed the race down a little bit more. I guess I would have thought, colder weather, maybe a harder packed trail, some faster times, but clearly that's not the case. What's your thoughts on that, Cody?
I don't know. Are we behind schedule? I feel like they're moving pretty good, but I haven't looked at how we are stacking up to past years. Speeds are not 10 miles an hour, but that's a good thing, I think. Um, yeah, I think,
Well,
yep.
I guess like my thought was, Paige kind of had to go plan B with her 24. I feel like Jesse
Right,
kind of did the same. I feel like honestly quite a few kind of changed, and
right, right.
the speculation on my part is like I guess that's because it's a slower trail and it's windier, or what's your assessment on the decisions as to why that's happening?
Well, at least Paige's decision was just that it was an unknown. That the trail had just been put in. When it's cold, the trail is put in, and typically it's pretty firm, pretty fast. And so, but it's also hard to know. Also, there's expedition mushers out there with a handful or more of snow machines. And those snow machines tend to, so you can get a little crust when they first set the trail. It can set up nice and hard, pretty fast when it's cold like that. And then as teams move over, it starts to break up. But we put a snow machine over it, especially these new expedition machines, the Skidoo machines. They've got an 1.5 inch lug track on them, and that just tears the top surface off, and it just turns it into sugar snow below. And so um, that's also something that's been in the minds of Jesse and Paige. I've heard them both worried about that, and it seems like it's possible. It's definitely a reality out there at times when those machines pass. You can go from cruising along 9 to 10 miles an hour to suddenly going 7 or 8 because of what happened with the snow machine passing. And so uh, those things are all things that they were thinking about when they made those decisions. I don't think, and also then the cold is, it's not that much fun to be out there to run towards Cripple and have to camp on the trail, knowing that it's going to be 40 below or colder, and maybe you're damp or wet or whatever. It's not that much fun. So it's easy. Like, once again, it's easy to have it all on paper and have a plan, and then once you get out there, the reality hits, and you're like, I think I just need to stop here for my brain and for the betterment of the dogs. And so changes quickly.
Sure, sure.
Yep.
And we were talking about this stretch, Cripple to Ruby. I feel like Eddie yesterday or on Tuesday, he was saying that stretch is really kind of I don't know, like really desolate. Like he's just described as like one of his favorite parts of the race. Can you
That's
talk about
our
that
favorite.
terrain there or a little bit? I'll pitch that to you, Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably echo Eddie's sentiments. It was my least favorite section last time I did it in 2024. I did it straight through. That was kind of one of my moves to kind of get back up towards the front. It was a decent trail. It was a little soft in some places, and I took my time, but I ended up having a pretty fast run through there. It gets a little hilly as you come back into Ruby, and I was okay doing that run. It's a long run, and I was okay doing it all the way through because I was taking my 8 in Ruby, and I felt like that was a good move, and it ended up paying off okay. It maybe wasn't the best, but yeah, it is. I would agree. It's a desolate country. I did run into I did a biker or somebody out there, and he's like, "Can I take a picture of your dogs?" I said, "Sure." I stopped and snacked my dogs, while she took pictures of my team, which was kind of hilarious because it is a desolate piece of country. I mean, you're not expecting to see anybody out there. Relatively flat till you start to climb into those rolling hills coming into Ruby.
Okay.
Beautiful to
Uh,
see the Yukon though when when you've kind of just been seeing the same terrain. I do love coming into Ruby the two times I've done it. It's really great view of the Yukon, and you kind of feel like you're in a whole different world to some degree coming out of that particular stretch. Oh,
so
would you like a chance to talk?
oh, is there a dog? Who's that?
That's Ruben.
Hey, Ruben. Oh, Ruben. Let's see. What was someone saying? Oh, Cindy says, Jesse said he plans to do 8 in Galena. Tell Paige. uh, but so yeah, let's take a look just at some of the others that are, the top 10 here. Kind of interested to see some of the people that last time we went live were out of the top 10, have kind of crept in. So, in Cripple with Jesse, you've got Milla holding strong there in third. And then Ryan Reddington, Travis Beals, Michelle Phillips make up 4, 5, 6. Gosh, you got Riley Dyke right behind that, Jesse Royer. There's a good collection of people coming towards Cripple. I was talking to Eddie before we went live, and he was saying that there was 11 mushers within 30 miles of each other. So the front of the pack seems to kind of be staying close to each other, and it's good to see some of these names there. Jesse Royer in 8th, Wade Mars in 9th, Sneaky Pete there in 10th. You guys kind of have been alluding to like some of these people could be making some moves here. When we say moves, what does that even mean? Like, are they going for longer runs? Is this where it go longer runs, shorter rest? Like, what does the move actually mean? And I'll pitch that to you, Cody.
I mean, that the move means different things to different people. Some folks, of course, Wade is one of those teams that always ends up there at the end and is just kind of lurking in the background forever. He doesn't tend to make big moves. He tends to he makes some bigger moves towards the end, but he tends to make smart moves, starting out real short and sweet, and then moves up the ranks there. doing longer runs and whatnot. And I expect with the team he has this year, he'll be making some moves that are appropriate here soon. Some people are going to do, leave cripple and do 70 straight to Ruby. Some people might do 370s all the way to Caltag. Some people, there's moves you can make that have been done many times by different mushers that work at times and sometimes fail. And so you'll see those. You might also just see the move might be that somebody is suddenly doing 5 more miles per run, and that over the next 10 runs or whatever adds up and gets them there. So that's the kind of stuff that Pete and Wade and some of those guys might be pulling in, is just kind of slowly increasing the distance of their runs, maybe slowly decreasing the time of their rests, and that tends to build up quickly and then get you where you want to be.
Right on. And do you have anything you want to add to that, Amanda? Just talking about moves, or do you wait until the coast to make your move, given where we're at in, with the weather, given the weather as they're getting to the Yukon, maybe the move is a little more favorable on the Yukon. What are your thoughts there?
I think the move, quote unquote, on this particular year is maybe holding back a little bit, being a little bit conservative. As cliche as it is, the cold just does take a lot of steam out of your dogs. And it's that tricky, it's both an art and a science. You don't want your competition to get too far away from you. But at the same time, again, not to be cliche, but what works for somebody else's dog team doesn't necessarily work for yours. And you need to be able to manage your team in the cold. And the reality is, in 40 below, that just looks different for everybody. But yeah, I definitely think having a more conservative first half leading up to cripple, I think for some of these mushers kind of in the back slots of those top 10 and even top 12, I think we are going to see them surge forward a little bit as we hit the Yukon, because they haven't pushed as hard. And the reality is, I think anybody worth their bootstraps, really knows that you want to get to Caltag with a strong team, and strong can look, very different for different teams. But, this year, again, I think it is going to be more about well managed versus having a powerful team. Yes, having a powerful team absolutely helps. But the reality is, if you ran them too fast in the cold early on, you might lose a lot of that power by the time you get to Caltag. So, yeah, it's definitely not a one size fits all. And, I think it's going to be interesting to say the least. And Paige is sitting pretty right now. I'm secretly rooting for her.
Nice.
Not so secret anymore.
come on, Paige. But it's there's a lot of the top 10 this year. There's a lot of really nice looking teams. A little bit, I admit, I haven't watched the live feed a ton, but a little bit that I have seen, a lot of good looking dog teams. Looks like a lot of well managed teams as well. So I think it could be anybody's race. There's a handful of teams right now that have the opportunity, I think, to go for gold. I think it's going to come down to being patient until you get to Caltag. Maybe not doing any huge moves. I personally wouldn't want to do a giant run in 60 below or whatever it was in cripple. Being able to, that was really wise of Paige, breaking up and going through cripple, and probably, I would doubt going all the way to Ruby. So yeah, we'll see.
Nice. So let me ask this, and shout out to my dad watching in Italy at 3:30 in the morning. All right,
Wow.
so he's coming in hot
Dedication.
right? He is coming in hot with a mental challenge question here. So,
boy.
we're like
How was those?
we're halfway in, and it was funny today at work. Actually, I was showing some of my new coworkers that I've gotten to know over the last couple months. I'm like, yeah, this is what my brother's doing right now. This is what he did. This is what I'm talking about tonight. And I was showing them some of the interviews, and I'm like, man, most of these people look pretty fresh in the first part of the race. But at some point, I do feel like, the lack of sleep catches up, the conditions catch up. So just kind of talk about some of those mental challenges. I mean, like for Sean, he was talking about literally hallucinating out there. He's like, I saw you and I saw Tita, that's our grandmother. And So I don't know, like I guess it's a little bit different because Sean was more kind of like not necessarily pushing like to get the win. He was more trying to finish, but I feel like those mental challenges are still, people at the top are still dealing with that. So I don't know, just kind of talk a little bit about that, Cody.
Yeah, I mean the mental challenges are hard when you're out there. The sleep deprivation is a big deal. Some of us handle it better than others, but at least for myself, I tend to get super emotional, and things that normally aren't as big a deal become a bigger deal. And so, if a dog has got something a little bit off or whatever, I get really worried about it, those types of things. And so, it can really kind of change the way you do things. You might stop at a checkpoint when you were going to go through, because you're so tired that you can't really think straight, and you're worried when you shouldn't be. I guess what I'm trying to say. And so, um, that happens a lot. Paige gets really funny, and it's kind of jokey. She also gets a little emotional, and so yeah, it's a hard place to be when you're really tired, and you're going long ways, and it's hard to make the right decision. There's so many decisions. It's like thinking about just even like the schedule right now. Like you can run partway to Ruby and do this. You can run straight to Ruby and do that. You can then go, like trying to constantly run those numbers in your head and think about what's next. What if I do this? Then what's next? And then where does that put me 2 days from now when I get to Unilocleat? What does that look like? And so you're constantly running through the schedule in your head. And if you're really tired and you're not very good at math like I am, then it can be a real struggle. So for me, I tend to go back and forth between thinking periods and fun periods. And so I'll put my earbud in, just one earbud, so I can hear dogs and hear things around me. But I'll put in something fun. Once in a while, I'll put in your podcast. Most of the time, I put in music, but
Let's
put something
go.
in that put something in that keeps me happy, keeps my brain kind of like in a good place. That good energy transfers to the dogs. If I'm singing to the dogs, they love it. They cruise down the trail. If I'm in a really bad kind of headspace, they can also feel that. And so I try to keep the happy zone going. And it is important to stop and think about what you're doing and make sure you're got your plan right. But also you got to like take a break and enjoy your ride as well. And so listen to a lot of music to try to work through that. Um, I don't remember what the question was, but something about how hard it is.
Well, no, I mean you answered the
Yeah.
question. I
Okay.
think that was good. One thing that as you were answering that I kind of started thinking about is, and I'll throw this to you, Amanda, that is, do you get used to the sleep deprivation, or is it just like at some point, like every time you go back to these long races, do they get easier, or is it still like, it's, man, this is the same as it was when I was doing the first few of them?
Yeah. Oh, totally. The sleep deprivation for a long time, and still to some degree, is the hardest part for me, hands down. The first time I ran Iditarod early 20s, really struggled with the sleep deprivation. This last time, later 20s, early 30s, I don't know if age had something to do with it or maybe just muscle memory, but it didn't bother me as much. And I think everybody struggles on night too. I mean, that's just part of it. I
Yeah.
was having a hard time staying awake in the burn, bouncing along. Like, great run, but really having a hard time staying awake. Yeah, that is something that I think everybody has to kind of dig deep, and you gotta do what works for you. For me, I can't listen to music. If I've got something in my ears when I'm really tired, that actually does the opposite for me. I kind of tend to zone out, and my brain just goes elsewhere. um some people really like the coffee thing. I'm definitely a coffee addict. You gotta be careful with caffeine though, and sleep deprivation, because if you're not well hydrated, you will crash at some point, crash and burn. But yeah, this 2024, the sleep deprivation did not bother me as much, and I don't know what I did differently. I think the training sometimes is actually harder than the race itself if you're doing it correctly. It's so I think muscle memory absolutely does have something to do with it. If you are
Yeah.
out there continually doing what you need to do in preparation for the race, that you shouldn't be struggling with it as much during the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think the that aspect where you know what's coming, you know how you feel, you know that you can get over it. That helps you. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Awesome.
Hey.
Thank you guys.
Mhm.
So I wanted to talk about also terrain. So we're getting to Ruby and we're making our way over there to Caltag, and we have the next section of mandatory eights coming up. Um, the weather though, like, have you guys looked at all ahead at as to what they may be getting into? Not necessarily.
Just heard there is a low pressure coming in from the coast towards the weekend, and then it might get nasty.
Ooh,
But I
okay.
haven't had time to research it fully. I just saw that somewhere.
Okay. So weather is could come into effect. That is certainly interesting. That was one of the questions from one of our fans. Um and then let's see, what did I want to also okay. Look, we didn't talk about this the other day, and we're getting a question about it, so I want to cover it. Um the expedition class. We kind of talked a little bit about how, they were going in front of Paige, and that may have played into her decision, and how that impacts the trail because they're on snow machines and all of that. Um, they're using the same checkpoints. They have access to the same amenities. Are you guys familiar or paying attention to the expedition mush and stuff? I'll throw that to you first, Amanda.
Yeah. I think overall, I think the expedition class had some mixed reviews this year. You got the one group that's out in front everybody, and then you have the group that's well behind everybody, not interfering with anything. I don't quite understand what all the nuances of the rules for them are. But they are able to, swap dogs in and out. I know they're flying. I think the front team, I think, is getting a new dog team every 300 miles, something like that. And I understand that the expedition crew in the back, I think they're using a combination of Husky Homestead dogs and Jessica Kleka's dogs. So, as far as, the travel right now for mushers, yes, for the folks in front, the snow machines absolutely have, some impact on the trail. And I think that's kind of the classic, what is it, like the idioma for all of us mushers, we're always talking about the trail and, oh, what's it going to be like? At the end of the day, the trail's the trail. You got to deal with whatever's out there. I think right now the best thing for everybody in the top 10 and whoever's right behind those guys is you kind of just got to not worry about them. You got to do your thing, stick to your plan, or whatever it is you're doing, and you got to deal with it. The reality is you are seeing other snow machiners out there at some point. They're not the only snow machines out on the trail. They're obviously most likely the ones in closest proximity, but 2024, I was, where was I? Coming into Koyak, and I got buzzed right off the trail by one of the pilots. They landed a plane right in the middle of the trail, blew my whole dog team. Right, that was more
Jeez.
disruptive than any snow machine that I ran into during the race. But yeah, the difference this year is there is a little bit more traffic, and yeah, but I think overall everybody kind of just needs to stick to their guns and do their thing and not worry about what everybody else is doing.
Sure. Sure. Cody, I saw you kind of maybe wanting to get into the conversation here of the expedition mushers. Is there anything you want to add there?
We're trying to be polite, Brendan.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think it's a really interesting idea. I like what Jeff King's group is doing back there. I think that's awesome. I think that is great. I think the support that Mr. Roki has provided is very nice as well. And I do have some issues with some of the things that are going on, but I don't need to talk about them right now. But yeah,
That's fair.
I think it's great to try something new, and I think there's going to be a big discussion after the race, and I'm sure then they'll figure out how it moves forward, and hopefully it moves forward in a way that doesn't mess with certain people's races. I know that Jesse was really concerned prior to the race, and it kind of sounded like the race organization didn't have things kind of laid out in a way that was great. Like didn't present it to a way in a way to the Mushers where people felt confident that it was going to be okay, and so that doesn't help. But I think it's all going to get worked out, and hopefully it'll be a great
Sure.
program in the future if it's
Sure.
not now.
Yeah. And I guess like the gentleman at the back that's doing it with Jeff, it seems like it's like more full on like an expedition. They're just kind of
Yeah.
like doing their thing, going about it. But then it's kind of interesting to see the other side of that, where it's like a strong push to be there at the top, and I don't know, like I don't know, I don't see the point. But anyways, I don't want to lose time talking about that, but I did want to acknowledge the question from the chat. I do kind of want to focus a little bit more on the other mushers in the race, and so I want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the rookies. So I'm going to go down a little bit here. First rookie, I'm seeing 17th place Sam Martin. Right behind that, 19th place Kevin Hansen. And those two are in front of Jesse Terry. Jesse Terry's an Ofer, mile 352. Kevin Hansen, 375, and Sam Martin, 379. They're both resting right now. Have you all been able to kind of check in on some of the back of the pack and some of the rookies? And if so, any thoughts on anything? Anyone there?
I haven't had a lot of time to look at how it's going for those guys, but I mean, Kevin Hansen lives in Kotzebue. I think he grew up there. He's been running dogs a long time, runs the Kobuk 440 and has a lot of experience. Seems like he's doing really well. Seems like his dogs are moving really nice. Who's running Failer's dogs? I just spaced his name there. Sorry.
Failer's is Sam Paperman though?
Yeah, Sam's running Failer's dogs. So
Yeah.
Sam's doing a nice job. He's run quite a few mid distance races here the last couple of years. I've raced around them a bit, and they seem like pretty good. And then Jesse Terry, I think he got like second or first in the Bear Grease here.
I think it was
can't remember
second.
exactly, but second, and his
Yeah.
wife got third, I believe. So they've got a nice dog team, and it's really happy, fun person to be around. I just met him in Anchorage this week, but we've communicated in the past, and just seems like a fun person to be around on the trail. And that fun goes to your dogs, and then your dogs move down the trail real nice. And so I always love being around people who are fun, and I always try to be more fun than I actually am. So it rubs off my dogs, and so it's cool to see those folks are doing pretty good up there as rookies.
Nice. And Amanda, anything to add just on the rookie class, whether anyone we just spoke about or anyone else?
No, not really. I would definitely agree with Cody. The good energy is everything. That really translates to your race. Thank you, Vandal. Vandal has great energy.
Look at that.
Ruben doesn't think so though.
I know.
Having a positive attitude, having a that all translates to your dogs. And yeah, I don't really know anybody in this rookie class. I have also communicated with Jesse a little bit, and he's the one. Did he take over Hans Gott's sled building?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's doing the sleds, and yeah, that's really cool. Good for him.
Yeah, I've been the couple videos I've seen of Jesse. You know, he just seems to like you said, Cody, just has such a good like happy-go-lucky kind of attitude. Which I think obviously can take yourself and the team a long way. So I feel like he's a very like a veteran rookie, if you will. You know, he's a rookie to the race, but like he comes across as experienced. He comes across as like kind of just taking it, you know, a run at a time. So it'll be interesting to see how. I feel like those three are kind of, you know, it's still, you know, we still have half the race left, if not more for them. So there's a lot that could happen, but just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about them. So I want to go back and circle to the 8 hours. So the 8 hour mandatory, that has to happen before Caltag. Is that right? Do I have that correct?
I think they can take it in Caltech as well.
Oh, they can take it there as well. Okay.
Yeah. Anywhere between Ruby and Caltech.
Okay, so like strategy wise, you know, that a lot of the people there at the top, that stop that cripple. Like how does things set up? Are you essentially, do you want to do that as early as possible? Are you trying to do that in Caltag and then maybe like slingshot all the way down to Unilaquite as the move? Kind of talk about some of the strategy playing into the 8 hours coming up and moving forward. And I'll pitch that to you, Cody.
Man. So yeah, in my Iditarod experiences, unfortunately, my eights were always reactive. I think I need to take my eight here. Um, Once again, it's always like easy to put things on paper that look good, and then and then reality hits, and you decide like, oh gosh, my pants are wet and my dogs are dying, but they're not really dying. You're in your funny little headspace and nervous about life, and so you take an eight when you don't necessarily need to. There's a lot of different ways you could do the eight. Some people might if they took their 24, say in Takatna or earlier in McGrath by Ruby, they might feel like they need their eight, so then they can move nice on the river. Some people look at where the most comfortable place to be is to do their eight. Galena is a really nice, comfortable place. It's got a lot of space. They have some food for you. There's a little more space for the dogs and humans there than say Ruby or Nulato. I'm not sure where the checkpoint is in Nulato this year. If it's at the school or that little cabin thing, but and then it just depends what you're trying to set yourself up for. And so if you're gonna like try to push through Caltag, say and go to tripod, then maybe you want to do it at Nulato, so you're well rested there, so you can push through and then get over to the coast and yeah, just depends what kind of setup you're trying to work, and and like I say, my record is not great on that. I ended up just resting where I felt like things were falling apart, and that's not the best way to do it.
Sure. So yeah, Amanda, talk to me a little bit about your experience, in this section of the race and kind of going into thought process with eight as well.
Totally. Yeah, I think one pretty salient, place to have a plan is kind of moving into the coast. I think a lot of us say, we got a plan, but we're adjusting the plan. And I think that's relative. Like Cody said, you can put things on paper, and the reality is, that's going to change if you're doing your job right, depending on what the trail looks like, what the dogs are doing, what the weather is. Those are all things that kind of factor into that. One place that I really did appreciate kind of having that plan, my last 8 hour in Ruby was kind of reactive. I did that run, straight through and felt like I should probably take my eight here, give myself some gas going up the coast. And, then I took another six in Caltag. It was 55 below that year from Ruby pretty much all the way to Old Woman. And I had kind of thought about maybe doing that run from Caltag to Unk all the way through. And I just thought, I don't think they're quite, ready for that. And that was actually a place where I did kind of go back to my notes, if you will, or my plan, from the beginning. And I think the coast is a great place kind of coming off your eight to have something on paper or very solidified in your memory, because you are tired at that point. That is if you're going to have a low point during the race, I think it is very likely to, be coming off the Yukon, going up that coast. There's a lot of different things that really kind of mess with you mentally. And that is a great place to, being able to revert to something that feels solid, whether whether it's the right move or not, keeping yourself, keeping your energy up, keeping the dogs up. And it's hard to say, how you can have a, plan date, because stuff does change. If that all makes sense. I'm not sure that was a
No, no.
concrete answer that you were looking for, but
No, it's just
yeah.
interesting to get your perspective. I'm also wondering, like, given the conditions, it's been windy. Like, is there thought to like the mushers maybe wanting to run at certain times of the day or not, or it's so cold that it does that doesn't really matter? Or what's your thoughts there, Cody?
Yeah, no, I mean you want to rest your dogs in the heat of the day, and so if you can get your eight set up that way, so that you're going out in the evening in the coolness, that's a great way to set it up. Um, Once again, sometimes it's just reactive, and it's like, oh, we just need more rest now, and so they end up doing that. But yeah, I mean, I think from what I know of Paige, where her latest plan to take her 8 is based on the time of day, so that the dogs will have that full sunny period to rest. But once again, things change, and she might be doing it she might be doing it in the middle of the night. It's hard to know, but that's what you're definitely what you're shooting for. We're always shooting for a nice rest in the sun, if we can. Um, Even if it's 50 below, that sunny period is the nicest period to be resting the dogs, and the dogs are most mellow and rest the best then. So
Mhm.
our dogs like to, I mean, one of the interesting things over the years is we used to only run dogs at night, and then when we ran in the middle of the day, they were really flat and seemed like they were unhappy and had no power. Um, and then since we've moved out here on the Denali Highway, we basically run in the daytime. We run during the down period where they would normally want to rest, almost every time now is kind of our main run time, because no matter what, when we run in the evening, they're about 2 to 3 times stronger, more into it. And so now that we run in the middle of the day, we kind of know what they look like on their normal lowest point, you could say, or they've gotten used to it and they're just really good at that time of day. And now when we run in the evening, they look just amazing. And so that's been kind of an interesting way to shift the way we train dogs, to run them when they don't necessarily want to run, on a daily basis, and then we get to races and we try to shift to that, like that basically instinct that's within them to run in the evening, run in the dark, run in the cold. They love that and they just thrive on that, and it's really fun to see.
Nice. I see you shaking your head, Amanda. What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to point out, for maybe some listeners who, because we get this questions with tours a lot in the summer, it's not dark 24/7 this time of year. We're kind of back to 12 and 12, and you can really use the sun to your advantage in the afternoon. The sun this time of year actually does something. And, you think of your dogs as solar panels, and that is a great time to recharge them, between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m., if you will. So, yeah, no, I was just agreeing with Cody. And for listeners who haven't been to Alaska or aren't familiar with the daylight time here, we are more often than not kind of back to a 12 and 12
Yeah.
light and darkness here in
And that
March.
sun, I mean, like it's been 40 below here every morning
Yeah,
recently, and when we got back from our dog run this afternoon, it was 4 below. But
hot
tonight
in the
it'll
afternoon. Yeah.
probably be 40 below again tonight. And so
Yeah.
there's a huge temperature swing, and you try to use that to your advantage for sure. The dogs rest really good in that afternoon heat.
Right on. And as we were talking about this topic, Paige, at least on the tracker, is showing that she's starting to rest. So,
I did just see that. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess you know, with it being it's 11 o'clock here, so that's 7 o'clock there. What is it getting dark? Is it still light out at this point?
Oh
What
yeah, no,
is
it's still super bright out. It's I think last night I noticed that the here where we are, I mean, they're way farther east, and so they're probably almost an hour later than we are here, surprisingly. But it is that, like, when I was in Bethel for the Cusco, it was amazing how much later it was light then than it was here in Denali area. But last night I noticed we still had light on the horizon at 9:30 p.m. So it's getting late, so it's probably after 10 where they're at right now before it's like fully dark.
gotcha?
So if she rests now, she'll be setting off in the perfect time.
Yeah, just what you were talking
Although an
about.
afternoon would have been a little nicer to rest, but
Sure.
you just kind of you can't always control that. So,
Well, I mean, if she can get at least a few hours in it, that's better than nothing, right? And
yeah,
then, like you
yeah,
said, it sets her up to be running at a more optimal time. A couple things I wanted to look at were, for the casual fan that's looking at the tracker, you see the MPHs next to the musher, right? And early on, you're seeing some higher miles per hour. You're now a little further into the race. You're seeing those numbers kind of go down a little bit. What can you tell the average fan who's looking at the tracker, like, okay, I see, I don't know, Travis Beals running at 8.7 miles per hour right now. Like, do we take that with a grain of salt? Do we think that that is a good pace to be running right now? Does it matter where, the section of the, trail that he's on? You know, some people will be like, oh, well, they're going too fast right now. They should be going a little bit slower. So I'm just kind of like, how do the casual fans break that down to be like, okay, things are good or bad, or It's more so you guys as the mushers have like the better perspective on it. I don't know. Can you share something on that? I'll pitch that to you, Cody.
I mean, I think it's important to just kind of look at what's going on with all the teams, and so, or at least the teams in an area. So if all these teams in this zone on the trail are going 7 miles an hour, most likely that means the trail's a little soft. There's little snows deep, or it's a soft trail, or what have you. There's some kind of conditions that are regulating speed. Um, if you see that five teams are going 10 miles an hour and one team's going six, well, there's something going on with that one team. So that's kind of how you look at that. And so it's interesting to see, like, watching. It wasn't interesting with the expedition mushers. They headed out towards Cripple earlier, and so I could see Thomas Warner's speed. I could see Roki's speed, and they were going 9-10 miles an hour with their fresh dogs or whatever they got going on. I don't know what they're doing exactly, but they had good speed, so that was good to see. Of course, Jesse's and Page's and Milla's and all those guys' speeds were a little bit less in the eight to nine range, more of the eights. But that could also be something to do with how the trail conditions have changed due to snow machines going over it or whatever. And so, but relatively, all those teams were pretty close in speed. Um, there weren't any huge outliers going way faster or anything. And so that to me says that's just the conditions. A lot of times you'll see that through this section. Then they get up to Ruby, they get on the river, and the river's hard and fast. And so they're going 10-5 again, things like that. You'll see those shifts. And so I wouldn't say that just because they're slowing down now, they're going to be going slow the rest of the race. I think it just depends on the trail conditions at the spot. So Jeff, as you're watching, just make sure you're looking at all the teams around to kind of see what speeds everyone else is going.
That's good insight. Kind of just like looking at the pack and being like, okay, what's going on within that? Like
Yeah, what's
like
the
we
average
said,
there?
right? Exactly. The other question I wanted to ask was related to the amount of dogs. We're still, we're halfway or a little over for some, or almost there. I mean, for some. So you're still trying to keep as many dogs as possible right now. You're not yet to a point where you're like trying to slim down the team, trying to have a few less booties to take care of, trying to not massage a few. Like, when does that kind of come into play? And I'll pitch that to you, Amanda.
Yeah, I think a lot of drivers, we take pride in finishing with as many dogs as possible. But there is, assuming they're healthy and doing well. But um, the reality is nobody has 16 Tom Brady's in their team, you know. And so there is, I think that aspect. I mean, you would hope that you have 16 Tom Brady's, and there are some couple of teams out there that still have all their dogs and they're doing really well. And obviously, we can't see, what all they're doing. But um, what was the question again? I've got
Uh,
I've got two distractions here that are really
just talk.
start
No, it's okay. Just talking
put someplace
about
else.
the amount of dogs. Like
Amount of dogs, yeah.
Sean and I've talked about at some point in the race, you kind of start slimming it down. You just start
Yeah,
identifying, okay, these are the ones that are going to get me to Nome. So
correct.
like you kind of like make yourself a little more efficient at the checkpoints and the dog care and all of that. I'm wondering like,
I
you kind of see that more towards the coast. Like when does that
Yeah,
kind of
I
kick
mean,
in?
I think anybody, when you hit the coast with a big team, I think it does kind of boost your confidence to some degree. For me, have charging up the coast with 12 dogs is a really great feeling. Feeling like you kind of got rock solid group there. I finished with 12 in 2024. I did not start with 16. I think I was maybe the only top 10 musher that did not start with 16. And I think it looks different every year. The reality is whether you have the same dogs or not, it's still a different team every year. But I think 12 is kind of the sweet spot. I don't know if that's, how you feel, Cody. I know for me personally, that's a number where I feel is, manageable even when I'm tired. I feel like I still
Yeah,
have enough power, I've got enough, energy, but I'm not, it doesn't feel like a chore, to booty 12 dogs. And
totally.
that's the number I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, I mean, I like finishing with as large a team as possible, but at the same time, I don't really want to finish with more than 12. I like
Yeah.
12 dog team is kind of my favorite to run. 10 is 10 is like about as low as I want to go these days. My first Yukon quest, I finished with 7. I don't ever want to do that again. I finished Iditarod with as low as 8, I believe.
Mhm.
And that's fine. They can do it. It just means I got to run up the hills a lot more, and
Yeah.
I'm getting old, and my knees hurt, and that kind of stuff isn't that much fun. Running every hill and getting sweaty and whatnot. And so I'm the kind of guy who's
Come
gonna make
on,
sure
come
that
on.
yeah,
You don't want to
I
run up.
know.
You don't want to run up Rosebud with me again. That was
No, I
fun.
tried to chase you up there once, and that was hard. um, but yeah, no, I think but also at the same time, I would say for us, like if a dog's not doing well, it's send them home. There's
Yeah,
no reason to drag
totally.
somebody along. Um,
Mhm.
if they're not happy, if they're
Mhm.
not happy or they're not contributing to the team, there's no real reason for them to be there. And so, um,
Totally.
I
Yeah.
mean, this year, like Paige is our team. We had a few dogs have some weird health things. We had a dog have a weird heart issue where she couldn't run anymore. We had another dog who um, maybe has bone cancer, couldn't run anymore. That was on our team last year. And those were both leaders on our team last year. Another leader on our team from last year suddenly got epilepsy and was having seizures, so couldn't run anymore. And so suddenly she went from those 16 from last year to 12 of those from last year,
Mhm.
which is great. And now
Yeah.
she's got 4 young dogs in there that have never done it before, and 2 of them are already at Amanda's house on their way back here. um,
They're great.
but we just reminded each other before she left that all you need is those 12. Those 12 can get you all the way to numb. You could start with those 12 and you'd be fine probably. And so if
Yeah.
somebody's not contributing, send them home. Don't worry about it. You've got some really
Mhm.
solid veterans in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get towards the coast, you get really tired. It is nice to pare it down a little bit if you have a really big team yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always first couple times I ran the Iditarod and got the Caltag, it was funny to me that you'd see everyone suddenly start like hucking all their stuff and sending dogs home, and suddenly they were like, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I mean, it makes sense. You want to like kind of
Mm.
get focused, pare it down. Um, but if you've got 15 dogs that are all great, then keep them there because you might need them later. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one thing that I was thinking of, Amanda, you said
Mhm.
everyone wants to have 16 Tom Brady's. Why not have 16 Jim 00 Otters? Ottos, excuse me.
Because you'd win every year, baby.
There
Just
you
win.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
No, I don't know about that. Pops never worked out a day in his life when he went in the field. No,
I
I'm
don't
just kidding.
know.
He's a great man, but he was one of those just mentally tough guys. Whether he was fit or not, he was gonna.
210 straight games playing the position center in American football. Come
Hmm.
on now. Come on
17
now.
years in the NFL, baby. That does a number on your body for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Um,
you said Tom
yeah.
Brady. I'm like, oh, I gotta give some love, to some family love
Gotta
here.
give
You
gotta
know?
give some love to Pops for sure. I appreciate that shout out. At the end of the day, you need both. You need the Jim Ottos and you also need the Tom Brady's.
There we go. There we
You need
go.
the brawn and the brain to some degree. It goes hand in hand. It's the same with dogs. One of the things we talk about it in the tours, during summer when people ask us, well, what's the one trait that you look for, in a good dog? And it's like, well, one salient trait, for us is the big D, the desire to go. We like those hard charging dogs, but you also need dogs who got a good head on their shoulders, somebody who is going to back off a little bit. The downside to having 16 hard chargers, which don't get me wrong, that's a high class problem to have, but dogs who go hard, are a little bit more injury prone. They're a little bit harder to back off, if you will. And so sometimes it's really nice to have dogs that are able to manage themselves. And that's, one less thing you have to think about as you travel down the trail. So that's kind of what I meant by having, 16 Tom Brady's. But the reality is, and I think it's probably a little bit different at every kennel. I think 12 is probably a solid, number for anybody. The reality is we just can't have I think it's almost impossible to have 16 just absolute superstars. You're more likely to have a solid 10 or 12 that are just,
Sure.
outstanding, is what I was getting at. So,
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Cool. I appreciate you just chatting
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah.
One thing that we haven't talked about, and we're kind of getting close to wrapping up. But wanted to bring up the whole situation with the bison, and was curious to kind of get your guys' take on that. Um, but you had Jody Potts had a interaction there. I guess it didn't sound like the bison actually attacked her, but it was in the way, and she said some native words. Then the bison went away. But just kind of curious to get your perspective on that situation, Cody. Anything you may want to add to that, or just like similar experiences that you've had before?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're dealing with large animals on the trail, it's a very scary situation. We've seen lots of bad things happen to other teams. Somehow, knock on this wood table here, hasn't happened to our dogs or our teams so far. I've had to pull a gun out many times on moose who were getting close, and never shot one, and never had a dog kicked, and I've never had that issue, luckily. But we've had many close calls. Um, the bison, I've been through the burn, I guess, 4 times, never five, I guess, because of the gold run. Never seen never seen them there, so never had a problem with bison. But moose are definitely a scary thing. And yeah, I watched the video I didn't see her interview where she talked about, but I watched a video where she took from her phone right after it happened. And
Right.
obviously she was pretty worked up, as you are, and was feeling pretty lucky, which she should be. I was amazed because her dogs were all still on a ball. I was amazed at how sweet her dogs were with each other at that moment. Maybe they were pooping their pants a little bit after that, and so they were all kind of just standing there in a ball. Um, but yeah, that's scary stuff, and don't wish that on my worst enemy. So,
Yeah. I've personally been charged by a bison, and it's very scary.
yeah,
It's
Jeez.
that's the stuff of nightmares. And bison almost seem a little bit more unpredictable than moose. Moose, the ears are bad. You kind of know to give them a wide berth, whereas bison they're a little sketchy. So
yeah,
feel for feel for Jody. Glad it ended well. And
yeah.
yeah, not fun when you're also protecting your team of dogs on top of it. So
Sure. And so kind of looking there at the bottom of the pack, Jody's sitting there in McGrath, 11 dogs. And that's the one thing that's kind of on my mind. She's 311 miles in, still got a chunk left. 11 dogs. I don't know. I start to get concerned, like 11 dogs to go 664. I was kind of just curious, not necessarily specific to her, but you have a couple other at the back with 12 and still 2/3 of the race to go. Um, I guess you kind of got to get more in tune with your like care on the dogs, like especially if you're trying to get to know them. Can you kind of talk a little bit about, especially a lot of those in the back of the pack are rookies, right? Talk about what they're up against, as the amount of dogs kind of goes down, being this far away from the finish line. I'll throw that to you, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, when you get low in dogs early in the race, you just got to focus on making sure that the rest of those dogs make it. And so you're looking at your lowest common denominator, the dog who's the weakest. What do they need? How do you take care of them? How do you keep all those dogs moving along nice? I mean, it's up to the person. Some people just decide to scratch and go home, but especially if you're a rookie and you want to finish, then that's the goal. And the goal is to make sure those dogs are healthy and happy and can get there. And so you just slow it down and make it fun and take the time you need and do a little extra care. And with smaller dogs, that's easier as well, and a little extra rest. It can still be a lot of fun. And so I know one of my early Yukon quests, by Pelly, which is only 200 something miles in, I was down to 9 dogs, and I think that was the year I finished with 7. So I had to walk up Eagle Summit in front of my dogs 900 miles into the race to make sure we could get up it. And what do you do what you got to do to make sure you get there. And you just, if you're into it, you put your head down, you do it, and take care of those dogs. And so
mhm.
I didn't realize Jody was down to 11, but I have no doubt that she can get there with those 11 or whatever number she ends up with.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I want to hear some confidence. I want to see her get across the Burled Arch as well. So, I
Yeah,
see that.
Jody's one of the tough ones for sure. So I have no doubt that if she puts her mind to it, she'll be there.
Awesome, awesome. And anything on that topic to add, Amanda? Any thoughts?
No, I think Cody kind of covered it. Yeah, it comes down to management, and Jody is a tough gal, and yeah, you can do the world with 11 dogs, but that's kind of up to you as the driver and how you manage the team. But totally possible. Um,
Cool.
Yeah.
So, with just before we wrap up, what are some things that you're looking at over the next few days? I guess we kind of talked about weather, kind of seeing how that may affect things when they get to the Yukon. Is there anything else that is kind of, in the next few days, interim, you know, on your mind that we should be looking forward to or looking at for the race? I'll throw that to you, Amanda.
yeah, I think once everybody kind of hits the Yukon, you might see going back to the earlier bit of the conversation, you might see a couple moves setting up, and the reality is where somebody takes their 8 might dictate what they're going to do, over the next 3 runs. And so I think we are going to see a little bit more jockeying for position. It's again, I think just because of the conditions, I don't really know what what we're going to see from a few of these teams, other than I think it is going to be a little bit closer than some people are maybe anticipating, simply because you are going to see some of those teams back half of that top 10 kind of moving forward. I think this year, just given the temperature, I hate to be cliche and keep reverting back to the temperature, but I think it is going to matter where you take your 8, and it's going to matter how fit, how hydrated, how well rested your team is in Caltag. I don't think I again, though, if the temperatures stay the way they are, I don't think we're gonna see any huge, big runs, Cal tagged on kind of thing. And maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. What do you think about that, Cody?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I actually saw they was supposed to warm up a little bit towards the weekend with that change
Oh,
in
is it?
weather.
Okay, cool.
So
Yeah, I
Oh,
haven't looked at any
yeah,
I haven't really
yeah,
looked ahead at the temperatures or anything like that. So,
yeah. I mean, I just saw one like warning that was letting
mm,
folks know that weather was coming in towards the coast, and so
cool.
low pressure most likely is bringing in some warm stuff. Yeah. What was the question?
well, no. So that was what I was about to ask. Is when you originally said that about the weather, my take was that it meant it was gonna maybe bring in like tumultuous weather. So can you expand on what you were saying there? What that could, if that forecast is correct, how was that going to change some of the conditions as they get, I guess, move closer to the coast?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know exact details. I just saw there was low pressure coming in off the coast, so it's pushing in more. It's coming off the ocean, which is cold, but it's not. There's still that big, huge heat sink of water out there is warmer than the interior Alaska, and so most likely, if it's pushing wind in from the coast, it'll be cold, but it'll be warmer than 50 below. It's not going to be that. And so I think you're going to see a warm up, but I need to double check the weather for sure. I could probably do that while I'm sitting here, but
Oh, no worries, no worries. I just
yeah.
was kind of curious about that. Well, on that note, I think that this is a good place to wrap up. And so I just will thank both Cody and Amanda for joining me tonight and kind of breaking things down and getting your perspective on a couple different things. We got one of the comments. Thank you all. I'm glad I caught this live. This helps me understand a lot. So again, thank you guys for being willing to do this. And for those of you tuning in next, I will be doing another one of these on Saturday and another one on Monday. I've got the 4 guests lined up, but we're still kind of doing the logistics. So I'll make a post and encourage you all to tune in and ask the questions. That's the best part of that. This is keeping it interactive and letting you all kind of get into the minds of those who've been out there before. So thanks again, guys, and until next time.